Chapter 1 is about hooking up and how to. Today, students have no more sexual partners than their parents did, regardless of the myth that the students are having much more today. Religious campuses have the same sexual attitude of public institutions. Hookups are often dictated by how one's peers view the potential partner. We look to our friends for approval. One of my friends even mouthed to me, "Is he cute?" We then use our hands to judge them on a scale from 1 to 5. Hooking up with someone attractive or hot can increase popularity. I want to hook up with him for the social status. One male student wrote that it's an accomplishment to have sex with a hot girl, and it will increase social status. Hooking up with students who are widely considered hot is one way to get their popularity to rub off on you. Athletes are a bigger accomplishment.
Sober sex, possible relationship, and drunk sex hookup mean completely different things. Some people blame hookups on being drunk. Hooking up allows women to keep their status of a good girl and allows men to keep their status of a real man. One and done is a common way for students to dismiss the significance of a hookup.
Chapter 2, How Sex Became Fun. 1/3 of college students would describe sex as being fun. A downer, stick in the mud, wet blanket, or party pooper are names you call people who are unfun at parties. You are expected to be fun at parties or not many people will talk to you. Being sexy meant conforming to the standard of beauty and signaling a certain amount of sexual availability. Historically, masculine traits have been valued more than feminine. Specific historical reasons for men and women coming of age in the U.S. believe that sex is and should be fun.
Chapter 3, Sex in Drunk World. College students are influenced by modern media, meaning that they want to party, get drunk, be crazy, and have casual sex in college. The influence in college is so big that when people go to college, they usually change. Campus life today is viewed as mostly social, because people go to parties and share it on social media, and this also might be a way to try to make people jealous. The terms frat boy and sorority girl have been glamorized as the way of doing college. In the book that we read, there was a story about Mara and Naomi. They didn't want to be in a sorority, but because of the influences, they ended up joining. They didn't necessarily like it, but they did it for the social status. When you're in a fraternity or sorority, you're invited to most of the parties. Fraternities and sororities are often the hot spot for underage partying on college campuses.
Chapter 4, Opting Out. Men and women are equally likely to report 0 hookups after college. Some choose to opt out of hookup culture because casual sex does not appeal to them. Those who do not engage in hookup culture often feel isolated as outcasts and losers. Sexile. This means having to leave the room when your roommate is having sex or hooking up. There was a story in the book about a girl named Cassidy who brought home a jug and heard them talking about dinner, then heard them having sex and cried and asked what's happening, and Cassie replied, "Sex is happening." Studies show how there is a hierarchy of sexual desire with white men and women, black men and Asian women being at the top, Asian men at the bottom. Religious students are not any less likely to hook up than non-religious ones. The only same-sex behavior that is routinely going on at college parties is girl-on-girl kissing.
Chapter 5, Opting In. Hookup culture is a gift from the gays to the straights. Gay men were the first in history to normalize condom use. Students believe hookup culture and having sex is a part of the college experience. Coming over to watch a movie is widely understood as a way to initiate a hookup.
Chapter 6, Careless and Carefree. It is impossible to have emotionless sex according to science. Expressions of tenderness, gentle kissing, eye contact, cuddling are to be avoided in hookups. If students accept the fact that casual sex is meaningless, then essentially everything else, no matter how small, carries more meaning. Several men said that they found holding hands more intimate than getting a handjob. In chapter 6, we read this story about Sydney and Brad. She didn't want to have sex without a condom, and he told her he wouldn't call her the next day if she didn't have sex with him. So she did, and he ended up not calling her the next day. Sydney just wanted to feel wanted and was looking for more than just a hookup. Men and women typically want to be treated nicely in hookup.
So chapter 7 is the unequal pleasure. Women often get shorter in hookup culture. Women have one orgasm for every man's 3. The orgasm gap is not a biological fact, it's a social one. It reflects what people choose to do in bed together. Women have developed a sense of disgust towards their genitals. In a university, there was an experiment that they put up posters that was saying, "Let women genitals blank," and all the people that were walking by, they were really disgusted and they didn't want to participate in this experiment. Women often prioritize the male orgasm over everything else in bed because they're trying to impress men. But if you're in a relationship, men prioritize the female orgasm more. Only 6% of boys 16 to 18 years old say that they're in favor of giving an oral sex.
Wanting to be wanted. To be both sexy and sexual, to be urgently attracted to someone who desires you in return, is one of the greatest pleasures in life. Negging. This is sexual compliance strategy that involves insulting women in order to undermine their confidence, leading them to seek reassurance. At frat parties, men make sure they're in the minority so that women are forced to compete for their attention and the guys can have their pick. Being the object of men's desire is a double-edged sword. We are grossed out by objectification by men, but also crave it. The more a woman worries about how she looks, the less likely she will experience sexual desire, pleasure, or orgasm.
Chapter 9, Flirting with Danger. 1 in 5 women in college and 1 in 60 men will be a victim of sexual assault. And there's a party that's happening in most of the colleges. They call it a traffic jam party. It's where people wear different colors to represent different things. Green, ready to hook up. Yellow, not sure. Red, in a relationship. Usually at those parties there's a lot of grinding, and if you're sober you won't understand that. So those parties are a big part of rapes in colleges. One theory suggests that rape is committed by dangerous men who routinely exploit women. The other holds that rape is situational, that there are people who will not rape unless they find themselves in an environment that elicits sexual assault.
Behaviors that are illegal, such as harassment and unwanted sexual touching, are not only tolerated, but the norm in hookup culture. Men are 3 times more likely to assault a woman who has been drinking than one who is not. Intervention by bystanders is one of the most effective ways we know to stop sexual assault from happening, but many students don't realize it's happening.
Chapter 10, moving on. Many students have said that hookup culture has helped them become smarter about sex and helped them decide what they want and don't want from relationships. Students often struggle with the difference between hooking up and dating. Even fraternity men leave behind hard partying after college for more serious relationships.
To wrap our book up, the summary. After reading this book, we have all come to the conclusion that it's mainly about college students and hookup culture. Following discussing the chapters of the book, we can all agree on the fact that almost everything that is mentioned we can all relate to or have witnessed.
The author of this book does a very good job addressing these topics and representing the data that she has observed. There is really not just one main topic of this book. The author separates the book into multiple chapters about multiple different topics and facts and does a very good job.